Hi, my name is Virginia Murray, and today I'm going to tell you about peppered moths and how they are an example of evolution. Peppered moths live in England, Europe, and North America. While the typical peppered moth is light in color, some moths have dark, almost black bodies. Up until the early 1900s, these dark moths were extremely rare. The forests where peppered moths lived were filled with trees that were light and covered in lichens. Against these light backgrounds, dark moths stood out like a sore thumb, um, making them an easy target to predators. By 1900, the peppered moth population changed drastically. There was a major decrease in light-colored peppered moths, and the once extremely rare dark peppered moths, their population increased drastically around English cities. The question at the time was why? At the same time, England was experiencing the Industrial Revolution. Factories were being built and they ran on energy produced from burning coal. The result was a dark soot that covered the surrounding landscape, and trees that had once been light and covered by lichens were now dark and bare. The change in the bark color of the trees affected the peppered moth populations because the once light background was now dark. So the tables turned, and the once camouflaged light moth was no longer camouflaged, and the dark moth was now camouflaged. This resulted in a higher consumption of light-colored moths by predators and a lower consumption of dark-colored moths. Because of this, dark-colored moths were more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass their dark genes on to their offspring, therefore increasing their population. Natural selection was proposed by Charles Darwin to explain how new species evolved. Natural selection explains how species change over time. Organisms in a population that have characteristics best suited for their environment are more likely to survive. These individuals then pass those traits on to their offspring. As individuals with advantageous characteristics multiply, those without these traits dwindle. In time, those traits become common within the population, and that is the process of evolution. So if you would like to come with me into my backyard to view some examples of light and dark peppered moths in their favorite environments, I would appreciate it. Oh wow, look! In this example, you can see the dark colored moth stands out much more than the light colored moth. This is an example of what it might have been like before the Industrial Revolution, when trees had lighter colored bark and the light colored moths stood out much less than the dark colored moth, as you can see in this situation. Here's another example. In this situation, you can see that it may have been much more like after the Industrial Revolution, when tree bark was much darker, because as you can see here, the lighter moth sticks out much more than the darker moth, making the darker moth more likely to not get eaten by predators, therefore more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on their dark traits to their offspring. So this is an example of evolution, specifically natural selection, because when the environment changed, the color of moth when the environment changed, dark moths became camouflaged, and therefore they were more likely to survive and pass their genes on to their offspring. Thank you.